All right, I am the last solo presentation of tonight. So I'm gonna have to get you guys interested in this conversation. Okay, I've got 20 minutes. So I'm really, really excited to have this conversation with everybody because I think that oftentimes when we come to a lot of these conferences, we see a lot of technical presentation. I actually want to give an opportunity to actually go a little bit even higher level and remind ourselves, ground ourselves, and remember, why are we having these types of discussion? Why is it TEE? Why are we discussing MCP? I think oftentimes we get into the nitty-gritty, and I think this is a wonderful opportunity, kind of like the earlier days of Web3 and crypto. So why does AI need to be centralized? I'm just going to jump right into it. It doesn't scale very well. Let me explain why centralized AI doesn't scale very well. If you remember, OpenAI, they raised $40 billion. $40 billion. What does that mean? How much does AI cost, right? So let's do a little bit of napkin math. So Sam Altman says, all right, it takes about 7 cents per query. They have about 500 million users. So per day, it costs $175 million. $175 million a day for your really silly questions, right? And so how are we able to scale this, right? This guy's giggling because you ask some silly questions, you know that, right? Well, Sam Altman's paying for it. Or SoftBank, the Japanese, we don't know, right? And so when we're talking about these types of queries, you can even see here really tiny print, really massive print. We have no idea. Can you guys see this number? The 257, it's really small, right? So what does that mean? This is the type of output tokens, from an AI perspective, not like crypto tokens. This is the cost of inference, or to be able to withdraw and retrieve that type of information. So for Gaia, what we've been really, really obsessed with is how do you make context and potable context a lot more efficient and a lot more effective. This potable context that I like to use, it's kind of like if we had, let's say, a shared religion, or we went to the same university. Let's say we were, raised Catholic, we would both know what a cross is. We would know what communion means. We understand who the Pope is, that we had 3 popes, if you will, right? So this is just an example of the importance of context within AI. And so what's really, really weird about this space, especially in centralized AI, is that you have more customers, and the more customers that you have, it actually becomes more expensive. So this is just like a really rough draft, right? Like the more customers you have, the more expensive it is. Whereas ideally, in a traditional business, you are able to scale your operational costs based off of appropriate unit economics, so that like if it doesn't cost you more to produce, one more couch or something like on Wayfair or another, IKEA, whatever it is. Ideally, it doesn't cost you more because you already have the infrastructure and rails in place, whereas you have maybe 1 customer versus 10 customer, 1,000, 2,000 more. These are some things to consider. Another thing why I don't think centralized AI is going to work in some scenarios is that it is not yours. It's not your AI. Because even when we look at something like ChatGPT, you're paying $21 a month. That doesn't even cover the cost of $175 million a day. But also number 2 is that once you stop paying that subscription, once you ask your really weird question, like that content, that data set is, again, no longer yours. So I think this is just kind of like, what's that word that I'm looking for? Not consumer appetite. You can even see this even just in the Web 2 space. You'll see, even traction on YouTube, people talking about like, hey, are we moving away from streaming? Do we have subscription fatigue? What does it look like when you actually have an ecosystem where there's just so many agents or so many AI applications where you have decision fatigue of like, what movie should I watch? Or like, what kind of like AI banking agent do I actually need to get that stuff paid? And of course, then this goes, if you guys have seen this movie, Her, I'm gonna ruin the movie for you guys. Are you guys ready? I'm gonna ruin the movie. You know what happens, right? It's not your boo. She got other boos. So the thing is, it's a shared inference in this case because she has different instances where she has other partners that she's attending to, as an example, right? So I've ruined the movie for you, great. But this is what we're seeing now, right? You see this kind of like UI layer, like, hey, you have your own virtual girlfriend, pay the subscription, scale up, etc. What does that actually mean? How are they actually attuning to you? So how did we get here? Let's have, again, kind of a higher level conversation and look back at the technological evolution that actually got us here to this day. Again, this is a grounding way as we kind of set the pace and the tone for the other technical talks. So take a look at this, right? You get the point, right? So I think there's a lot of, let's say, fear-mongering, et cetera, around, hey, we're creating applications to replace jobs, to replace humans. And so we have a lot of dialogue and narrative about how we're building AI on top of people, rather than how do we build AI to be able to support and accelerate people in their tasks. And this type of acceleration is not a new concept. You know, one of the most important developer tools that was created in the times of the Egyptian Empire was the rope itself. So again, the concept of AI agent swarms, or the ability for AI agents to have very specific tasks. You can also see this during the time when Egyptians were able to have very focused tasks. Your job is to grab the rope, wrap it around that giant rock thing, and then pull it up to place it on the giant triangle rock thing, right? So that still exists. And then also the understanding that human labor was always under the guise of automation. So do you guys recognize this here? It's very niche. It's very small font. It is Mechanical Turks. So Amazon's Mechanical Turks, I came across this back in 2013 when I was trying to automate some tasks for a hackathon. And if you guys can't see this, which is absolutely insane, and the pointer doesn't work, but it's a penny, 5 cents, 12 cents, 50 cents, 3 cents. This is US dollars being paid for humans. These are microtransactions for humans. So you have humans who are completing tasks, which doesn't actually make sense. 5 cents, 1 cent, this is more like an L2 transaction fee, right? Maybe like an older L2 transaction fee, because you're paying AI agents. I think AI agents can be monetized and incentivized economically through micropayments. I don't think it's sustainable or scalable for humans to be able to be paid 5 cents a task. And this was really important in the early days, because this is how our image tagging, is this picture a dog? Is it a dog? No, it's a cat. So that type of tagging, this is how AI, like image recognition, was tagged back in the day, as an example. And then, of course, then within the last 10 years, we also had SaaS and the proliferation of SaaS, if you will. But if you remember this, you still have to pay a monthly subscription. You still need to pay the marketing person, the project manager, even the technical PM, a monthly salary, a yearly salary, to be able to operate this tooling. So when we talk about this type of technological evolution and our human pursuit for technical automation, one of the quotes that I actually want to bring up is Durkheim. Durkheim is one of the founding fathers of sociology. And in the 1800s, he says, what happens to humanity's sense of self-worth when we are automated out of a job? And this is the 1800s, right? So it's a conversation that has been going on for quite some time. And a random fun fact that I just want to throw in here, IBM was around in the 1800s. Super weird. Don't know how that works. I think they were like programming on paper and dots, so interesting. But so why am I on this stage? Why am I so passionate about this? Who is this random person? So I'm Sydney, and I have been working in Web3 for quite some time. I've worked across different projects, anywhere from Filecoin to the Graph, 0x, Consensus, you name it. And when I took some time off in Web3, I started working in robotic process automation, RPA. Oftentimes, what RPA is considered is kind of like a distant cousin to AI. But one of the most important things that I learned in this industry, this company has been around for 20 years, is that robotic process automation is how do you automate the, I guess, procedures at scale, at like an enterprise industrial scale. So we had clients like Toyota, Santander, Western Digital, stuff like that. And one of the things that we really pioneered within our IDE was being able to have like predictive context. So this goes back to this context aspect, if you guys remember, which is like, hey, you guys are building, let's say, a banking app. You need to be able to capture a user. Why don't you build out some sort of like backend database? So it knows what you're building, and it'll kind of like suggest how to build forward. And something that you saw earlier in the conversation, if you were paying attention, is the ability to move kind of beyond just your traditional generative AI application. I think what you guys will hear quite a bit is MCP within, the last few weeks, this week, next week. And when we're talking about this modular context protocol, is that we want to make sure that it's actually possible for AI to not just answer your questions, but AI to be able to process a lot of the tasks that you actually want to automate. So if you look at this OpenAI description, right, on ChatGPT, pay my electricity bills this month. As you already know, ChatGPT cannot pay your electricity bills. It can give you instructions, which you still have to go and do. You still have to take time to do that. And, maybe one day they'll have like some sort of Stripe integration or Plaid where maybe they can have access to your credit card and pay it. But as you can imagine, we're really starting to Frankenstein a lot of the traditional Web 2 rails together. So this is what MCP is trying to resolve, which is like, how do you make it possible for AI to have enough context and enough coordination to be able to handle that? So a little diagram that I kind of jerry-rigged together is just an analogy, right? So this is just an example. What you can see on your upper right-hand side, we've been really focused on the open source developer inferencing level. So what that means is with the any kind of client or like Python documents or stack that you're building, you're giving it context, and you can host your AI application if you choose to, either on-prem on your device for security, for low latency. You can also, if you choose to, host it in cloud or a Web3 provider if you decide. So if this is the MacBook, right, this is kind of like your Gaia inferencing level. Then you have this left-hand side, the dongle, which you can have like different peripherals that you can so choose to coordinate with. And in terms of what you want to coordinate with, you can choose your own model. Right now, we support up to 30 plus models because, again, we're completely open source. And then even with the extra peripherals, you have all these little dongles here. I've just kind of, put in, let's say, MetaMask, Uniswap, Collabland, because this could be an example where, let's say, you are a KOL, you're an investor, maybe you want to participate in an NFT or a DeFi Discord, and you can say to your agent that you've built, hey, when I join a Discord that has X many users, when they in this channel talk about a new project that's coming, an airdrop, maybe some kind of price point, I'm going to delegate. I'm going to delegate to my MetaMask DTK and then be able to go make certain transactions, calls and puts on my Uniswap, right? So that is a level of architectural coordination that it's going to be very difficult for centralized AI to be able to handle. And one of the reasons why we wanted to tackle this is we understood that we needed to really build out this inferencing network. So this inferencing network is our major focus. So what this means is being able to have a node network. Within the node network, you have different instances of context. And so you can build various teams, ElizaOS, ElizaOS, other frameworks. You guys can like build different agent applications on top of the inference framework so that the agents can coordinate, communicate, and have a shared context, and then also have various shared types of identity. And I think the best way to even give you a hands-on example of this architectural diagram is in this process, about back in December, we trained 3 different agents. And so the inference piece for training models to handle real-time decisions is the key here. So I highlighted that in red. So we trained these 3 agents. We trained the agent on our investment thesis. We trained a second agent on how to choose the winners, the losers, and then we trained a third agent on payments. So we had 500 applications. Within 500 applications, we trained the investment agent. Here's our thesis. slash the winners, slash the losers, pay the winners, and then within 6 seconds was able to pay out 43,000 USDC to the winners. And so for context, for those who have been to ETH Denver, I've heard, I don't know if Lane's here, but I've heard that from the organizers that it took about 8 weeks for all of the different sponsors, all the different organizers to be able to pay out. So this is just an example of scale and comparison and contrast, right? And so I think at the end of the day, our biggest focus as an inferencing tool, because we're open source, you can build whatever it is that you're looking to build. But the thing that we care about the most is how do you have potable context and a coordination so that they can be able to talk to one another and be able to execute of the most performant agent and the most performant model. But why, why does this matter? And I think it really came down to, if you guys remember this book, who read this book? Anybody? Yeah, that guy. Maybe you're American, I don't know. Right, so it's this wet dream of I don't ever have to work again. I'm just going to automate all these tasks. And this is not a new idea, right? Tim Ferriss, it's 2008, you guys. I'm in my dorm room. I'm holy shit. No, I was not in college in 2008. I was in high school. I was oh my God, I can automate myself out of a job. It was absolutely crazy, right? And so this concept is not new, and the idea of how do we automate ourselves to another higher level of existence has always been, again, kind of a wet dream in tech. So why, right? Maybe one day we can automate ourselves and we can just bed rot, right? Maybe you just want to do that. Maybe you're so rich one day, you just want to live forever. We're trying to, guys, we want to automate ourselves out of a job. We want to live forever. Maybe you just want to be a hot DJ. It doesn't really matter, right? Once you start automating yourself out of some of these new, more mundane tasks, it actually frees yourself up to be able to execute on some of these things. And so, look, you guys, it's the last solo talk of the day. Really, the major takeaway that I really want you guys to remember is kind of 4 bullet points. Number 1, centralized AI costs, at least for ChatGPT, about $175 million a day. How the hell does that scale? Number 2, ChatGPT is not yours, or other centralized, I'm picking on them, but other centralized marketplaces, other centralized applications might not give you the type of security and context that you need. Number 3 is just kind of remember anywhere from the Egyptians to the Mechanical Turks to, Monday.com, the SaaS platform, right? So how did we actually get here to wanting to build AI applications, AI agents to coordinate? And then lastly, if anyone is curious, a lot of things that we think about is how do we actually inverse this type of economics so that you can actually scale and provide that potable context. So my name is Sydney. If you guys have any questions, if you guys want to chat, I am available. Would love to have a discussion. We can go deeper. Talk about why TEs are a spicy take. Why TEs are not my favorite solution for AI. But that's it. Thank you so much.